Welcome to Train Signal. You're watching a lesson on configuring group policy preferences. Now this is going to be a short lesson in which we're going to check in briefly with Global Mantix. Then I'm going to talk to you about exactly what these group policy preferences are. We're going to go right into the operating system, show you how to set up a couple of these preferences, and then we'll test them and see how things work out. So checking in with Global Mantix, well basically they've learned that group policy in Windows Server 2008 R2 has become much more flexible and powerful through the use of preferences. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of these preferences and see how Global Mantix can put them to use. So what are group policy preferences, right? We've seen the preferences node in the previous couple lessons when we were looking at the group policy management editor. Well, first of all, this node is new to Windows Server 2008. And yes, I know here we're using R2, but I just want you to know that preferences were introduced with the original Windows Server 2008. Now, preferences include more than 20 group policy extensions that expand the range of configurable settings within a GPO. So, a simplified way of putting it is, well, it's some additional settings. Now you might ask, well, why didn't they just add these settings just into the regular policies? Well, the reason is because, as you'll see when we go in, that these are more of extensions. And here it's listed as group policy extensions. I've also seen it listed as client-side extensions. In other words, it looks and acts a lot like if you were literally just configuring the client. Now, the other thing that I want to mention is some people argue that it does not expand the range of configurable settings because anything you can do through a group policy preference, well, they have found that there's another way to do it through some other group policy setting. And here's what I'm going to tell you. The answer is yes, that's true. Just about anything you can do in preferences, there is another way. But in my opinion, this, if nothing else, simplifies the process of doing some of these extra settings. Okay, so when we go in and take a look, I'll give you a couple examples. I'll show you how you could do it through preferences and then how you could also go ahead and do it just through some other policy setting. But generally when you do it through another policy setting, well, it's going to involve more work than what we're going to do through preferences. Now on the screen, I have some of the more popular extensions that have been added, but there's a lot more than just what's on this list. And we'll go in and, you know what, let's just go ahead and let's go right into the operating system right now, and we'll take a look at all of the group policy preferences. Okay, so here we are on our Windows 7 client computer in the Global Mantix network, the one that we've been using pretty much as our remote management client throughout this course. And just like we've seen in the last couple lessons, if we want to get in and manage group policy preferences, we have to get into the Group Policy Management Console, which we can do in one of three ways. We could either go over to a domain controller and access it there. We could remote desktop into a domain controller, which we could do because here's New York DC1 remote desktop connection, and then access it that way. Or we could go ahead and install it as part of the remote server administration tools, which was already done in a previous lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and get in that way here on my client. I'm going to go ahead and click Start, Administrative Tools, Group Policy Management. Once in the Group Policy Management utility, we'll go ahead and expand our forest, expand our domains, and expand globalmantix.local. At this point, in order to get in and take a look at preferences, we have to go in and edit a group policy. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the default domain policy and right-click and select Edit. This takes me into the Group Policy Management Editor. Let's go ahead and blow that up to the full screen and move this over a little bit because there's going to be some stuff to see. And you'll notice that under both the computer configuration and the user configuration, there's not only policies, but there's also preferences. And under preferences, we have window settings and control panel settings. And if I expand these out, you will see that there's quite a few settings that we now have with preferences. Under the Windows settings, we have environment, files, folders, initialization files, registry, network shares, shortcuts. Under control panel settings, we have data sources, devices, folder options, local users and groups, network options, power options, printer, schedule tasks, services. And I'll tell you what, if we go down here to the user configuration side, under the Windows settings, you'll see it's somewhat similar, but we have a few different ones. We have applications, drive maps, okay, which we didn't have over on the computer side. And if we expand control panel settings, you'll see we have pretty much the same thing, but we have like internet settings and regional options and start menu, which we didn't have on the computer side. But either way, as you can see, there are quite a few additional extensions that have now been added into group policy through the use of preferences. Now, in Global Mantic's network, we're going to go ahead and set up a couple preferences here. I'm going to do both a Windows setting preference and also a control panel setting preference. The first one I would like to do is I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and set up mapped drives for your users. Now, in an earlier lesson, we had gone ahead and set up a folder called sales data, and we shared it under the name sales data on our member server. So if you did not follow along and set up that share, or if you eliminated that share since that previous lesson, you're going to want to go ahead and set up a shared folder somewhere out on the network in order to be able to follow along here. But basically, all you have to do, if I click on Drive Maps, you'll see here that there's just nothing there. But if I right-click and go to New, Mapped Drive, I get a configuration window where I can choose to update, create, replace, update, or delete. So not only can we set up map drives for our users, we could also delete a map drive off of the client computers as well. I'm going to go ahead and just say update. This will go ahead and update it in case. This works pretty much if they don't have a map drive, it'll map one. And if they have a drive already mapped under the letter that we're going to use, it'll update it to the new drive mapping. Now the location we're going to use is /New York mem1 2k8. That was our member server / sales data. And I'm going to say that we want to go ahead and reconnect on login. So once we have set up this share, we want the client to go ahead and continually reconnect this share every time the user logs in. Now, there's a little bit of, back and forth on this, because technically, as long as this group policy is in place, every time they log in, they're going to get this group policy and it's going to create the share for them. So there's not necessarily the need to do this reconnect. What this will do is if the group policy were to ever disappear, the map drive won't. Okay, because it's still going to reconnect on login, meaning you're actually setting this up on the client. Now we can go ahead and label it, so let's just give it a good name like sales data. For drive letter, we could either use the first available, or we could go ahead and specifically use, and I'm going to go ahead and use the S drive, right? S for sales data. Either way is perfectly fine. If we need to connect to this folder using a specific username and password, we could go ahead and enter that here. Now this would be if maybe the only way they can get there is through a certain username. In other words, maybe everyone doesn't have access to this folder. But in this case, the sales data folder does allow everyone access, so we don't need to go ahead and use a specific username and password. So we're going to go ahead. We're not going to worry about hiding or showing this drive or any other drives. We're just going to leave that alone. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now we have a mapped drive in place. Well, let's go ahead and test this. I'm going to close out of the Group Policy Management Editor, close out of Group Policy Management. If I go ahead and click Start and go to Computer, you'll notice that I have my C drive, I have a floppy drive, and I have my CD drive. That's it. So what do I want to do? Well, as we learned in the last lesson, if we want to go ahead and update our group policy settings without logging off and logging back on again, all we have to do is type in GP update. But as this goes through, I want to tell you, I'm hoping that this works the way I want it to, because I know that it has worked this way before, but I've also seen weird things happen. All right, the group policy update has completed. Let's go ahead and click Start. Computer. Look what happened. We still don't have our S drive. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. Meaning when I said I want this to work the way I expect it to, well, meaning I wanted it to not work. Because I wanted to show you, I had mentioned in the previous lesson that GP update doesn't work for everything. Certain things do require that the user log off and log back on again. And this is an example of one of them. So let's go ahead and close this and log off. And go ahead and log back in as the Global Mantix administrator. And now, if everything has worked the way we expect it to, if I click on Start, Computer, and look at that, we now have the sales data S drive. All right, so that's kind of a nifty little thing that you can do to quickly and easily set up mapped drives for all of your users. Now, how was this done in the past before we had group policy preferences? Well, it was done through something called login scripts. You would create a script that says, I want you to map the S drive to the sales data share that's out on the network. And then you'd go ahead and you'd have that script run at login. Now, is there any difference? No. You're going to get the exact same result. But the difference, as far as I'm concerned, is that if I go ahead and let me close this window. If I go back into group policy management, in my opinion, let's see, what are my choices? I can either, let me blow this up, just go ahead and come down here to preferences and just create a new map drive the way I did, and that's it. I'm done. Or I could go under policies, and I know we haven't learned this yet in this course, but I could go under Windows settings, and then here's scripts, and then there's logon, so I could right click and go to properties, and then I could go ahead and add a script, and then I have to give the name of the script. Oh, but of course I have to create the script first. You get the idea? Many more steps involved when you create scripts to do things rather than just have quick and easy to access preferences. As a matter of fact, almost all of the preferences, the way that you would have done it in the past, is through a script. I mean, that's pretty much what Microsoft has done. They've taken all the popular scripts that people have been using over the years, and they've said, all right, well, how about instead of scripting that, let's just go ahead and have a setting so you can do that. Personally, I think that's pretty nice of Microsoft. I really love this. Now, let's take a look at another preference. Under Control Panel Settings, let's go to Local Users and Groups. Let me go ahead and expand this, make sure you can see everything. Now, the reason I want to go to Local Users and Groups is because this is something that I have done personally in a real-world production environment. I have found that it comes in quite handy if you take all of your client computers and on every single one of them, rename the built-in administrator account to something other than administrator. First of all, it improves security because you want to rename the administrator account. But this way, we rename it to a name that I, as the administrator, am familiar with, and I get to also assign it a password that I'm familiar with. That way, if I need to go out and manage any client computer in the network, I know that I can get in as a local administrator, not necessarily using the domain administrator account, which there might be issues. Maybe you can't contact the domain, things like that, and you have to log in as the local admin. But I don't have to worry about it because I know that even if somebody tried to go in there and change something, group policy is going to override that and go ahead and change it back to the username and password that I'm familiar with. So, how do we do this? Well, I'm going to right click on Local Users and Groups, New, Local User. And we have a little window here where, again, we have an action. What do we want to do? Now, instead of creating a user, which you could do if you want to leave the built-in administrator account, but you want to create, let's say, another account, you could do that as well. But what I like to do is go ahead and update an existing account. So I'm going to update the built-in administrator account and rename it to Globo Admin. So as far as full name, there really is no full name, so we could just say Globo Mantix Local Administrator. Or really, I guess technically the full name should be like maybe Global Mantix Administrator, and the description would be the Globo Mantix Local Administrator. And then we go ahead and assign a password to it. Now we don't want user to have to change password at next logon, so let's clear that box. As a matter of fact, let's make it that the password never expires. Let's just leave this as the password for all local administrator accounts on all of the computers within the domain. Now, if I wanted to disable it, I could. And if I wanted to set up an expiration, I could do that as well. But we're not going to worry about that here. All we want to do is basically rename it, set up the password, and that password never expires. That's the three main things we're doing here. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to close out of the Group Policy Management Editor, close out of Group Policy Management. Now, if I come over here and click Start, I'm going to right-click on Computer, select Manage. This takes me into Computer Management, where I'll find my local users and groups. If I expand that and then click on Users, you'll see that the administrator account is still called Administrator. All right, let's close that. This time, instead of logging off and logging back on, let's try our GP update again. I happen to know that in this particular instance, GP update does work. You don't have to log off and log back on. This is all you have to do to update the policy. So the policy has updated, so I'm going to click on Start, right-click Computer, go to Manage, expand local users and groups, click on Users, and look at that. The administrator account has now been changed to Globo Admin. And not only has it been changed to Globo Admin, but let's go ahead and close this and log off. Just to prove that it actually worked, I'm going to go ahead and press Control-Alt-Delete, say I want to switch my user. Check this out. I think this is another huge benefit to changing the built-in administrator name from administrator. Likewise, you should probably change the Global Mantix domain administrator account name as well. But as long as you don't change them to the same name, you remember in the previous lessons where I would type administrator? And when I did that, right here, down here where it says log on to, it would change to the local computer because it would assume I want the local administrator account. Well, notice it doesn't change anymore. And the reason why is because the name's not administrator. If I type in Globo Admin, now it assumes I want to log into the local computer. So now I don't have to worry about typing in anything but the actual username. But if I type in Global Admin and put in my password, I just want to show you, it is a legitimate account. I can log in. So pretty much that is how preferences work. I mean, the only other thing that I will show you, let me go ahead and log back off again. And let's go back in as the Global Mantix administrator. That way we have privileges in the domain. So again, we have to switch user here. Type in administrator. And then we'll go ahead and let's go back into Group Policy Management and edit a policy. The only other thing really that I want to point out is that across the board, if you were to look at all of these different preferences, the interface as to how you actually set these up is similar to the interface. Now, yes, I know it's true that if you were to create a map drive, you wouldn't see the exact same screen that you see here, right? This is a slightly different screen, but what you're entering into that screen is exactly the same as what you would enter into a wizard or utility of similar nature on the client. And therefore, it makes it very easy to understand and easy to use. Now, the one other thing that I'll point out is something like that local user where we change it from administrator to global admin. I just want to tell you that what you really would most likely do. So if you're going to go and do this in a production environment, typically you're not going to do that based upon users logging in, but you would probably do that over here under computer configuration preferences under local users and groups. Okay, it works the exact same way. This is a really good example of where you're going to want to do it on the computers, not to the individual users. So that's pretty much how preferences work. So that brings us to the end of this lesson where we talked briefly about global mantics, realizing that preferences can help them expand their group policy capabilities. And to be more specific, we saw how they can go ahead and take the mapped drive to the sales data that they want their users to have access to, and they can go ahead and do that now through group policy rather than having to have some kind of a script. We learned that preferences are really nothing more than a bunch of additional group policy settings, and they're done in the form of extensions. Makes them very easy to go ahead and implement. We configured a couple of these preferences, tested, and saw how they worked. That's all I got for you. Like I said, this was a short and easy one. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.